The governor is pushing for the schizophrenia and other conditions faced by at least 40,000 of our homeless neighbors be addressed through his new Care Courts plan, which might involve mandatory placements and medication. Assemblymember James Ramos is looking for better accountability and efficiency out of the state systems that already exist. He joins me now live as his bill AB 2144 makes its way through the Capitol. Assemblyman, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Thank you so much for being here. California already has a system for involuntary custody for those who may be a danger to themselves or to others. And that in and of itself, huge job, huge responsibility. But we don't seem to know very much about just how well this system is working for us because we don't have very good data about it. That just doesn't seem like it could be, but that's the reality.
It truly is. There was an audit that was done a couple of years ago that identified certain benchmarks that needed to be met. One of those was the collection of data from the different facilities that are seeing those within this, they call LPS hold, 50/50 hold that's on there. And so we have to collect that data to understand how to better equip our local governments and the state on programs that truly do work and that would have an impact on the mental health and those that drastically need the resources from the state of California.
AB 2144 would require better stats be kept on the ethnicity and gender of those receiving services, and that these stats end up in a report given to the legislature every year, a report that also would include recommendations to reduce disparities in treatment across the state. And looking into this and crafting the bill, have you found that patients are handled very differently depending on where they are in California?
I think there's also collecting that data that would serve to that point to quantify some of those arguments that certainly underrepresented communities suffer at a larger episode of these types of issues. So collecting that data would start to quantify and correct and back up what we believe is happening in the state of California.
Do you feel that the state maybe has been wasting money, perhaps, with some of its efforts not really able to see what has worked and then not being able to double down on what has been effective?
I think data, once we collect data, we'll be able to see that. I think coming from the San Bernardino County Board of Supervisors and here to the state legislature, we were able to have study sessions that looked at best practices, things that did work in the state of California, across the nation, and then move forward to make sure that we were adequately funding resources into programs that actually had effect and had effectiveness on the issues that we tackle. Here at the state of California, the auditors serve as that component. So seeing that there's some criteria in the audit that was done that calls for better data collection to ensure that the resources are being put in the right areas is something now that this bill will do with AB 2144.
When it comes to what might work better for one state system, let's pivot to another one of your bills, 1703, that we visited about before. This is the Indian Education Act. You, the first Native American member of our state legislature, this really also has to do with accountability. Accountability for what school children here get taught about the state's first people. Remind everyone what this bill is about.
So AB 1703, it's called the California Indian Education Act. And what that bill will do, it would bring relationship building with local tribes and local LEAs, local school districts, to build on California Indian Education Task Force with the inclusion of the California Indian people to build on curriculum and relationship building. We've seen how in other parts of the state, others have dressed up as Native Americans and frolicked around a classroom. And so we know that still is happening here in the state of California. AB 1703 does a couple things, builds a relationship with local tribes in the local areas of school districts to start to form a relationship to build on factual curriculum and relationship building that these types of issues would not continue in the state of California. These are things that we're still tackling here in the state of California. And AB 1703 is meant to start that dialogue and the advocacy to one day get into the curriculum the true history of California's first people.
And when it comes to 1703, tell us where it is in the legislative process, designed, as you said, to avoid situations like we were just looking at out of Riverside, where a math teacher decided they needed a stereotypical chants and a headdress to try to teach a lesson. What's going on with 1703 in terms of the process of passage?
So the process, we just had a hearing here on Tuesday, the 23rd, I believe, and the bill got out of Education Assembly Committee for the first time. We had testimony from the vice chair of the people of Santos Manuel and the vice chair of the people from Saboba tribal government, where what's really interesting and what's really dynamic is that there was over 20 tribal youths that showed up to testify in the Me Too's at the end of the session of public comment. Members that were youth that showed up, that one in particular member showed up to support AB 1703 that stated that she was from the Cahuilla Indian Reservation and the Saboba tribal government. So the youth now are coming forward on this piece of legislation to let those know in the state of California that they're drastically engaged to make sure that California learns about them and their heritage and the California Indian people as a whole.
Alrighty, and we will keep tracking its progress around the Capitol. Thank you so much for joining us this morning to talk about both of your bills. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much.